So hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, I'd like to read the UCSF land acknowledgement. Okay. So we'd like to acknowledge the Ramaytush Ohlone people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Ramaytush Ohlone elders, past, present, and future, who call this place the land that UCSF sits upon their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Ramaytush Ohlone community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. So good afternoon and welcome. Welcome Dean Carol Dawson-Rose and Dr. Sabrina Wong and School of Nursing colleagues and learners and members of our community. We are delighted to have you join us for the 45th Helen Nahm Research Lecture. My name is Soo-Jung Lee, a professor in the Department of Community Health Systems and chairperson of the School of Nursing Research Committee for 2025 to 2026. I would like to extend a warm thank you to this year's research committee members, including Michelle Pelter, Rune Mera, Elena Portacoloni, Milo Santos, Jenny Liu, Maria Yefimova, and Paige Gilbert for their thoughtful work in guiding the Helen Nahm selection process. On behalf of the research committee, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all as we come together to learn from and to celebrate Dr. Sabrina Wong for her remarkable achievements in nursing research, education, advocacy, and leadership. Dr. Wong is truly an inspiration. Her work exemplifies the far-reaching impact of nursing science, advancing not only education and research, but also the well-being of the communities she serves. The committee was deeply impressed by both the breadth and significance of her contributions, and we are grateful for the meaningful difference she continues to make. Thank you all for being here today as we engage in this enriching experience of knowledge sharing and scholarly dialogue. Without further ado, it is my honor to introduce Dean Carol Dawson-Rose, a past Helen Nahm Award recipient herself, who will share more about the significance of this award.
Thank you, Soo-Jung, or Professor Lee. I appreciate the work that the research committee does. And and just celebrating the delight you had when you read about Sabrina. It feels like I'm gonna cry. Sabrina, I'm sorry. It's fun to be having someone here that I anticipate. It's very meaningful. So I want to thank the research committee, as I said, and I'm looking forward to the presentation of Dr. Wong. Before beginning my formal remarks, I want to share a little bit of information about Helen Nahm and who she was to the school and to the field of nursing science. There are several people who, we've had 45 of these honorees, and right now I don't see anybody else in the room from that group. But it's such an exciting event. I know for me, it felt like, life, looking at all my research life. I'd like to begin by sharing a little bit about Dr. Helen Nahm. She earned her nursing diploma in 1924 and later completed a doctorate in educational psychology in 1946. This combination of education and nursing shaped her career as a pioneer nurse leader and a strong advocate for what was at the time a bold vision of nursing education. She believed that research and education are fundamentally intertwined. She also played an important role in advancing the accreditation of nursing programs throughout her work with the National League of Nursing. In 1958, Dr. Nahm became Dean of the UCSF School of Nursing, a role she held for 11 years. During her tenure, she established the first doctoral program in nursing on the West Coast and helped advance the integration of social science and research methods and sociology into the School of Nursing, the first of her time that did such a thing. And our sociology program is very robust now. The primary function of graduate programs is to prepare nurses for leadership positions in nursing education, in nursing service, and also as scientists and conducting research. Dean Nahm recruited one of her claims to fame while she was the dean here. She recruited Anselm Strauss, and he came with Barney Glaser, and they thought up grounded theory. Some of you may have heard of that, and which is one of the hallmarks of our sociology program today and our nursing program as well. I want to pause on the idea of leadership of Dr. Nahm, but also Anselm Strauss and Barney Glaser as leaders in their field. This is the Helen Nahm research lecture, but I think it's also of note that leadership is really at the core of what our focus is here in the school and was really a big part of Dr. Nahm's vision. I do alongside recently at Alumni Weekend, I got to reflect on what is the meaning of our school and what's one of our purposes. And I think our purpose is to educate and launch the next generation of nursing leaders. And that's a really important role that UCSF plays. And it's important in all the ways that nurses impact people's lives through clinical practice, through science, as well as education. As you will soon hear, Dr. Wong exemplifies this vision. And to tell you more about our honoree today, it's my pleasure to welcome Dean Emeritus Catherine Gillis to make some remarks about Dr. Wong.
Thank you very much. Dean Dawson Rose, it's great to be back and to not be the dean. Which is only to say that I will help you in any way I ever can. I want to welcome those of you who are here today, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to our 45th Helen Nahm Research Lecturer, Sabrina Wong. As you've heard, this award recognizes a UCSF faculty member or alumna whose body of scientific work advances nursing science and shapes how care is delivered. Through her research informing practice, systems, policy, our alumna, Sabrina Wong's scientific career is a clear reflection and a perfect match to the focus of the Helen Nahm Lecture recognition. Dr. Wong, as you've heard, is an alumna of the School of Nursing, where she earned both her master's and her PhD degrees, and she completed postdoctoral training in the UCSF Institute for Health Policy Studies. Now a professor at the University of British Columbia, she directs a highly productive and well-funded program of research focused on primary healthcare services, and that program has been instrumental in influencing the delivery of care. Her work focuses on something that's both complex and essential, and that is how we measure and improve primary care. She's developed tools that capture the experiences of patients, clinicians, and care teams, and she's linked those insights with administrative and electronic health data. In doing so, she's helped build the foundation for understanding what high-quality, equitable care looks like. But her impact doesn't stop at measurement. Dr. Wong has worked closely with policymakers and health system leaders to ensure that research findings are actually used shaping healthcare delivery across British Columbia and throughout Canada. She's led national efforts to establish common measures of health services research. She's also helped create one of the largest data sets on patient-reported experiences and outcomes in primary care. Further, Dr. Wong's career reflects a core belief of Dean Nahm. So I'm going to repeat what you've heard for emphasis. Research, education, and leadership are required and deeply connected and critical to advancing nursing and improving care. Committed to mentorship of graduate students, doctoral trainees, and postdoctoral scholars, and contributing to national training programs, Dr. Wong has prepared the next generation of researchers. Joining me in her nomination is UCSF Professor of Medicine and former Director of the U.S. National Institutes of Health, National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities, Dr. Eliseo Perez Stibal. Although he's unable to be with us today, Dr. Stibal has sent a message in celebration, which we will play for you now.
Hello, my name is Eliseo Perez Estable, and I'm delighted to support Sabrina Wong's selection as the 2025 Helen Nahm Lecturer at the UCSF School of Nursing. I'm sorry that I have not been able to travel to attend and listen to this talk myself, as I have known Sabrina now for over 25 years. She is an internationally acclaimed scientist working in health services research with a nursing and a primary care perspective in Canada most of her career. I collaborated with her at UCSF many years ago on a particularly challenging project on perception of risk. Sabrina is an expert in measurement development, reported perceptions of healthcare received. She has experience in qualitative and quantitative methods, has had a strong focus on immigrant health and Indigenous populations in Canada, and has always been a fantastic colleague and mentor. In fact, I recruited her to come to the National Institutes of Health to have a role here for a couple of years. Thank you so much for granting her this award, this privilege of being a named lecturer at UCSF.
So thank you. In closing, I want to make three, I hope, quick observations. First of all, the women in this picture are quite young. Not a gray hair among them. We could not have known then that Dr. Wong would accomplish what she has in the 27 years since she defended her dissertation. But in 27 years, much has been accomplished, and that is part of what this award recognizes. Faculty colleagues, I want you to please assume that your trainees, the people you are supporting, will be the next Helen Nahms. Excuse me, this next Sabrina Wongs. They could be Helen Nahms too. But support their careers now and continue to support their careers into the future. Point two, again, looking at this picture, you may not recognize all these folks, but I want to point out that it takes a village. In this picture, you will see the dissertation team members, who include Sue Bakken on the left, on your left. Sue's expertise was in data management strategies at this time. She's quite well renowned. Anita Stewart, whose expertise was in measurement and chronic illness. Catherine Waters, who is here with us today, who is an expert in public health and nursing. And I chaired this dissertation with my expertise in primary care. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, once I was considered an expert in primary care. Anita Stewart also sponsored her postdoctoral work. The combined expertise of each of us supported the development of a scholar whose impactful work took the best of each of us to advance a unique and highly productive and important focus. Finally, Dr. Wong's work has had broad impact in British Columbia and across Canada, and then her brief appointment at the U.S. National Institute for Nursing Research enriched the United States. At UCSF, we continue to believe that our global work is important. It's important to improving health and healthcare. How fitting that in 2026, we should be wise enough to highlight a U.S. Canadian partnership and to honor a Canadian colleague. I want to particularly extend my thanks to the wisdom of the research committee, who recognized that it was time to call out Canada and Canada's importance to us. It is now my pleasure, and I call forth, join me, please, to welcome the 45th Helen Nahm Research Lecturer, Dr. Sabrina Wong.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming today. And I want to thank UCSF for all that they've done, because we have 3 people that have graduated from UCSF at UBC. So it's great. Dr. Allison Finney, Dr. Leanne Curry, who was a protege of Suzanne Bakken and had started our informatics program up there. So UCSF is amazing. So I want to start by saying thank you to Drs. Gillis and Dean Dawson for your lovely remarks and introduction. It's an absolute delight to be here in my alma mater. It matters a lot. I am now living on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people and the Musqueam and Tsleil-Waututh. So I just want to recognize that that's unceded territory, and we are having debates today with the Premier in British Columbia about the land claims. So I'm really happy to see that you're working and strengthening your relationships with the Ramaytush Ohlone people here at UCSF. I also want to recognize Dean Helen Nahm and her legacy. She was bold in her vision and accomplished in her achievements previously unattainable by nurses or women. And it is such an honor to be recognized. So I want to thank my nominators, Dr. Eliseo, who is not here today, but also Dr. Lee and the research committee for your work and your service in reviewing the applications and continuing to recognize UCSF alumna. Okay, so going to the next slide. So some of you may know some people in this picture. I don't know if Dr. Pelter is here today, but it's pretty funny picture. So UCSF School of Nursing is near and dear to my heart. I was an adult when I started the master's program, but the faculty I met, the staff that I interacted with, it's like the school was giving birth to a baby master's and PhD person at the time. I consider the people who make up UCSF School of Nursing among the very best, innovative in science, practice, and education. And I am privileged to stand on the shoulders of such influential nursing leaders and scientists. I remember fondly my time as a master's and doctoral student thinking, and this is where the picture comes in, what am I doing here? Here is a picture of Dr. Benner's class at the time, and I was desperately trying to learn theory and philosophy from both Drs. Afaf Malise and Patricia Benner. And you can see here is a picture of our PhD class, known as the Thai group, and to some, because this was a year, there was a number of Thai students who came as a group to study. And one of the first and largest international PhD cohorts at the time. And you'll note Dr. Pelter here. She is in the devil's costume in the back there. And I remember that day was around Halloween. And, we were very serious international doctoral students, and she and her colleagues were trying to liven up this very serious group of us. Here is a slide, and I just want to say I am still not a nurse theorist today, but their important teachings remain with me as I have continued on. I remember having conversations with fellow doctoral students, one of them here being Dean Carol Rose Dawson. Dean Dawson was not in my class, but here we are connecting, and we're probably not talking about theory, but we're supporting each other in the PhD program. And the man in the picture is my life partner, who doesn't have any hair anymore, but it's pretty funny. And that was my first rugrat, Harrison, who is now an adult. So a note here for students and young faculty, there is no right time. So you see the thing in there, it says, when is the right time? I just want you to know there is no right time. So you just got to take risks. So I was young, I was impatient, and I thought I could do it all. And this is a book edited by Nancy Caltretter, and it was gifted to me by my supervisor, Dr. Kathy Gillis. Dr. Caltretter was one of only 4 women in 1964 Harvard Medical School class. This book was exactly what I needed to do during my PhD, where Nancy and other women wrote about how hard choices come up and surface for professional women throughout their life cycle. A couple of influential chapters were in that book, spelled out the science of having kids and what it means when you wait. So I was convinced by reading books and the evidence, I was convinced by the science that I better not wait for my eggs to age any longer. And so my first one arrived when I was writing my dissertation. Maybe to the detriment of not being the best mother I could be at the time, given the values and what women were supposed to do, I had a singular focus to finish the program. And so I made it my goal to write 1 paragraph per day. Some days were better than others. And some of you may remember me walking around as a baby with a baby. I had to walk to the school, and I had to walk. It was the only time that he would sleep. And so I needed to get to my meetings, my very, very important meetings. I was so glad for the meetings. It engaged my brain, and it made me recognize that, I could get things done. And so, I was reading, of course, at the time and trying to do my dissertation. And I was trying to do everything by the book. So I had this manual that I was reading all the time about, what you're supposed to do, changing the diapers. And, I was trying to learn all this stuff, including breastfeeding. And I was breastfeeding every 3 hours. And Kathy, you might remember this meeting. It was a very important meeting. And I had gone in there with my baby. And Kathy said to me, "Why would you wake up a sleeping baby to feed him during the night?" And after that, we all got a lot more sleep. So that was good. So another learning, of course, came from my dissertation committee, and you saw them up there, including Catherine Waters, Suzanne Bakken, who's now at Columbia, and Anita Stewart. So mentors and sponsors are desperately needed for PhD students and your master's students as well. Your committee and your colleagues will be your sources of guiding wisdom, leadership, systems thinking, strength, and resilience. To all of you students out there, believe in your supervisors and your committee members. They are the ones that see your potential, where you need to grow. And for those of you who are racialized or face discrimination, this is especially important. You do enough already, switching between what our science and our academic cultures expects, and then what the rest of your life is like. So it's known as code switching, and people do this a lot. Your mentors and sponsors are vitally important to helping you be the next generation of nurse scientists. Looking back on the time as a doctoral student, I really enjoyed the space to think and grow as a scholar. I was supported to apply for grants, publish, and move as quickly as I wanted through the program. And I was poor at the time, so I really wanted to get through. So as a doctoral student, I had a lot to prove to myself, being in a new country and all. Remember, I was an international student from Canada, and I also wanted to make sure I was trying to get scholarships. So I was enthralled with my studies and getting also involved in student life. And I took on the role as a GSA president, much to the chagrin of people on my committee. So during the time as the president, I read very carefully UCSF strategic plan and closely followed the development of the emerging Mission Bay campus. I spent hours strategizing, using the strategic plan, and attending meetings where the president would show up and the provost and the UC regents in order to ensure UCSF made good on their promise for additional student housing, because it was in their strategic plan and not just around the edges of the Mission Bay campus. Persistence, evidence, and determination paid off. Future students of Mission Bay campus received the go-ahead for more student housing during my time as a president from the UC Regents and UCSF. So they benefit today. So that's great. The foray into policy, doing something for the greater good, and advocacy lit a fire for me. I decided to spend some time doing a postdoc and work as a project manager, and did so at the Institute for Health Policy Studies, which you've heard about. And then that's where I met another amazing group of scientists, Nita Stewart, Anna Annapolis, Eliseo, Kevin Grumbach, to name a few. I learned more things on working on large data sets and survey science, creating and self-report measurement tools. I also learned to use qualitative methods and was doing patient-oriented research and using mixed methods before it ever became a thing. So a funny story, Eliseo said to me, well, you're a nurse, you came from the nursing school, and so, you must know qualitative research, right? And I just thought, no, but sure, I can learn it. And sure enough, I had to learn it. So that was really interesting. So the second kid I had came as I was finishing my postdoc, and it was as if I had planned it or something, because the last day that I was about to go on leave, because I had to get a C-section, I started to go into labor. And so after 3 months, I started as a project manager. After 3 months of, having baby and stuff, then I started my position in the Medical Effectiveness Research Center for Aging and Diverse Populations. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity and the people that I met there. So fast forward to now having a faculty position at the University of British Columbia School of Nursing. I worked with colleagues who helped me get a grant from the British Columbia Ministry of Health to look at quality improvement and performance measurement in primary care. We created a survey to measure patients' experience in primary care, and this peer-reviewed publication on the right shows a manuscript we wrote based on qualitative methods to identify experiences of primary healthcare that mattered most to patients. The report on the left shows the work completed to develop the survey based on important patient-reported experiences. I reviewed publicly available surveys, mapped items to dimensions, administered the survey to a random sample of British Columbians, and completed the psychometric testing. So all the technical work. This work then led to my first grant that was delivered by the Canadian Institute of Health Research. And the Canadian Institutes of Health Research are Canada's equivalent to the NIH. So I want to note here that the Ministry of Health grant and the CIHR grant were inspired by Anita Stewart and Anna Annapolis's work on their widely used interpersonal processes of care tool. The resulting survey was available in 3 languages, English, Chinese, and Punjabi, and our team started to develop evidence about differential experiences based on ethnicity, language, and patient-clinician sex concordance. So the survey became the basis of a Canada-wide survey of patient experiences, which was publicly available to all through the Canadian Institute for Health Information website. So this institute is an arm's length, federally recognized organization funded by Health Canada, which is the federal arm of science in the government of Canada. And so we held the technical report, which was on the Center for Health Services and Policy Research site. So the items and scales that make up the survey have informed numerous studies since across the world, including the OECD Paris project. So the Paris project cycle 1 just recently finished across 19 countries, where their providers and patients were looking at how to measure what matters most and to make sure that it was linked to primary care services and practices. So I'm proud to be the Canadian representative for the OECD Paris. And while a story for a different day, I was also able to assist the US in participation during cycle 1. During the time I was there working on the intramural side of NIH. So if any of you are interested in Paris OECD cycle 2, please talk to me, because I really want to put you in touch with the OECD people so that we can have the survey be available also to Americans in the next round, which will probably happen next year. So we used the survey in the beginning of a program of research when I was a baby faculty member at UBC in the first research project of EQUIP. EQUIP is the equity-oriented primary healthcare interventions for marginalized populations. The survey informed work showing that equity-oriented interventions at the practice level made a difference to patient health outcomes, inclusive of decreased depression and less pain. This project of EQUIP led to multiple impacts. I'll draw your attention to the first 3 as they are directly related to the survey work I led. We were able to show new and expanded ways of measuring the effects of primary healthcare for marginalized populations, showing methodological innovations for elevating primary healthcare interventions, so using mixed methods. And we were able to show Canada's leadership in the measurement of primary healthcare and links between primary healthcare and population health. EQUIP is now known as EQUIP Healthcare, equipping health and social services for equity. It has evolved into an implementation program that involves health equity interventions implemented in a range of healthcare settings. The interventions are designed to enhance organizational capacity to provide equity-oriented healthcare, particularly to those who experience significant health and social inequities. So during the same time, I jumped on the opportunity to do more work in the area of electronic medical record data. I was first introduced actually to this source of data through the clinic that was running at the time by the UCSF Department of Family Nursing. After having some experience using large administrative data during my postdoc and working with electronic medical record systems in the hospital, I was keen to learn how we could use EMR data as a source of knowledge. At the time, in the early 2000s, Canada had an EMR adoption rate in primary healthcare of about 37%, compared to the Netherlands or the UK, which already had 99% and 96% coverage, respectively. I was of the mind that EMR data was an important source of information for clinicians and their patients, policymakers, and researchers. Yet there was virtually nothing in place to extract data from multiple EMR systems, standardize the data to a common schema that used approved ontologies and terminologies, so the work of informatics, or use it for practice improvement, much less research. So I became part of a leadership group that built the Pan-Canadian EMR data repository that exists today, and it's still going strong. By the numbers, this tool, this looks like 1.8 million patients that submit their data, over 1,500 clinicians, and spans almost all provinces and territories in Canada. So we don't have as large of a population as the US, but that's pretty good that we can have that much data and clinicians be involved. There's lots of learnings about data extraction, use of standardized data schemas, data sharing agreements, and relationship building. So just to finish off the EMR data story, where are we at today with the EMR data? So EMR data are now developed enough that we have created the Canadian Electronic Frailty Index. And I've just completed this with a PhD student over the last couple of years. So this EMR, the Electronic Frailty Index, is based on Clegg's and Rockwood's work. And it's a 36-item index that's based on the UK Frailty Index. So the Frailty Index score can be categorized into those who are fit or have mild, moderate, or severe frailty. We have created it for use in North America with North American data, and recently completed extensive testing to see if it is fit for clinical use with primary care data. And the exciting answer is yes, it is. So what's so exciting about that? The EFI is an automated tool that pulls information from different sources in the EMR to create the index. It calculates a score and it provides this information to the clinician without them having to do more work. And it also, some of the other work that I've completed shows that if you can pick up mild and moderate frailty in primary care, the person's health can be maintained, or you can actually decrease frailty. So that's pretty amazing. And I really hope there's people out there that are going to do interventions for people who have frailty. And then data are not just useful for research purposes, but they're also useful for clinical decision support. So EMR data can now be used for clinical decision support. So this is really great because it helps individuals as well as it helps practices. If you wanted to improve more from a population health approach for mild and moderate frail people in your practice, the EFI is the right tool to use. So going back to the other stream of work, which is all on performance measurement, as my QUIP colleagues continue to scale and spread their work in research, and the fact that I was on a tenure run, I dipped my toe into writing another grant. And this one was a team grant, and our team was successful in getting this money. So the transformation study was a mixed methods concurrent study design where quantitative analysis was supplemented with qualitative studies. So this was a multi-method data collection strategy, and it was carried out across 3 different provinces. And the research team consisted of not just scientists, but also decision makers, clinicians, patients, and there was also advisory committee that was both regional and international. And so we conducted surveys again in English and French this time. And we also collected patient and provider level data. We also did case studies and deliberative dialogues. So the overall aim of this work was to show feasibility of providing a comprehensive portrait of primary care performance. So data were collected across the 3 provinces, and we used the framework of a patient medical home at the time to map items from the patient and provider surveys to the patient medical home pillars. So you can see by this picture that's on the left-hand side that there's actually 10 pillars that are aggregated, and you can see down the side at the top, there's foundations, functions, and ongoing development of primary care. So we took the items within each of the pillars and created a pillar score and then calculated a mean. So there was about 86 practices that participated across the provinces, and the regions basically showed differential attainment towards being a patient medical home with respect to infrastructure, community adaptiveness, and accountability. Notably, all practices in all regions, independent of the remuneration model or contextual factors, could be achieving more across the pillars, and that the lowest attainment for all regions was observed in connected care and accessible care. And so these are important functions of primary care, and it shows that we were able to see what is a crisis today many years before it actually happened. So I guess I should have paid more attention to the data and tried to get it more into the decision hands to ring the bell and say, hey, actually, there's going to be a crisis. So accessible care is a big deal. And I'm now saying connected and coordinated care is a big deal. So a big lesson here, comprehensive performance reporting that draws on multiple data sources in primary care is actually possible. So in primary care, I don't really think we have an excuse except to say we're not spending enough money and it's undervalued. So hopefully we can change that, because primary care remains the foundation of our systems. Okay, so here's a picture showing some of the major events that I have been involved in over the past 2 decades. So I started with emphasizing the mechanisms by which I was working with colleagues to develop a primary care information system that included survey data and electronic medical record data. I also worked with many colleagues in a supplemental education program that still stands today, the Transdisciplinary Understanding of Research in Primary Healthcare. This program was delivered by investigators across Canada, and it was owned by all of us. The events show here funding grants that were awarded and contributed to the Canadian primary care that are working towards becoming the Canadian Primary Care Research Consortium. The newest venture, I would say, in my life. So this work I'm showing to you is about measuring performance based on the patient medical home, and that was completed during the time of the 12 community-based primary healthcare teams that you can see there, 2013 to 18. And then I also, during this time, led a thing called the Common Measurement Project. And that was 12 teams where we did meta data collection and analysis. And then there were other grants that came through this primary and integrated healthcare innovation network. So we were continuing to evolve the governance structure of what this looked like. So a few lessons here. So doing good science is not sufficient to move the dial. And this is what Kathy has already said. And Dean Nahm had that vision a long time ago. If the vision is to inform and transform a system, then you have to do more than keep your nose to the grindstone and keep your head down, which is what I learned from my parents, right? So my parents said to me, you keep your head down, you don't cause trouble, and you just move forward. And it absolutely got me really, really far. But leadership and trying to change and move the dial are different things that I'm now going to where my parents didn't necessarily go to, right? So I had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and learning new skills. So a PhD provides you with a very important skill in expanding your critical thinking. And this is really, really important. It teaches you resourcefulness. And nurses are some of the best implementers I know. And so from a nursing perspective, you're excellent implementers. And you can take into consideration individual, community, and organizational context. I had to use all these skills to move something forward that was largely beyond my individual control or comfort zone. I leaned on my ability to create and sustain trusting relationships to move governance structures forward. Originally, each of the things that you see there in the Primary and Integrated Healthcare Innovations Network were formulated under their own governance structures, and we were working in parallel and not always together in the same direction. And then halfway through these grants, the CIHR recognized it would be really nice to have a network coordinating office, and having a facilitator and a convener of the nodes would be helpful to improve cohesiveness and improve governance. So I started to work on the network coordinating office, which was funded about halfway through those cycle of grants. And I learned how painful the change management process can really be. Having the nodes work with the office, the coordinating office, was a major achievement. Prior to the coordinating office, as I said, everyone was doing their own thing, all doing good science, and not particularly motivated to act as a cohesive unit. So in writing the grant that currently funds the research network, I learned that building infrastructure out of nothing takes a village. And I think Kathy also said, creating PhD students and leaders for the future also takes a village. And how did I get this done? So upon reflection, COVID-19 actually really helped in this situation to coalesce the primary care community as the major contextual factor. It also built on relationships, on agreement of vision, and the ability to take risks, and probably also not realizing how much work was going to be needed. And of course, it takes money, right? And in this case, the money came from CIHR. But they believed in us and they believed in me. So that's pretty amazing. So these are some of the people, right, to show you that it actually takes a village of a lot of people across the country. So based on the capacity created through the educational work, development of patient-reported experience and outcome measures, and electronic medical record work, we had an audacious goal of creating a sustainable primary care pan-Canadian learning health system. So we invested time, we've invested money and energy to build the capacity of practice-based research and learning networks across Canada. And as a research network, funding is coming to an end as of 2026. So we began in 2025 to put in place a more stable governance structure, use our change management skills, and adhere to a common set of values and principles, and formulate a more enduring structure that is now known as the Canadian Primary Care Research Consortium. And so the mission of this consortium is to strengthen primary care research ecosystem in Canada. And we will advocate, capitalize, and strengthen its impact through patients. And we're going to bring together 19 to 20 practice-based research and learning networks across Canada. We're going to bring together data and education to achieve more through collaboration than we could as individual scientists. After all, primary care is, as probably in other countries, is foundational and could be still considered a middle player in all of this, beholden to acute care and other economic priorities. And I'll borrow a quote from Prime Minister Mark Carney. If you are not at the table, then you're on the menu. So primary care, if it isn't advocating for a strong foundation upon which the rest of the healthcare system rests, it will continue to face bleeding 5,000 paper cuts. CPCRC elevates and supports primary care research and helps ensure investment results in high quality care, health equity, and system transformation. And the consortium is a pan-Canadian entity that's going to be a not-for-profit. So I don't know anything about not-for-profits, but I'm learning fast. And it's dedicated to strengthening and scaling primary care research in Canada. It plays a national convening role in bringing together different people. So individuals considered to be researchers, clinicians, decision makers, people with lived experience, and to do impactful research for the system. And it connects people through its infrastructure. So what is really exciting is that you think this is an audacious idea, or maybe you think it is, but Australia just invested 10 million Australian dollars in a consortium. So we started before they and did their announcement. So I'm going to just say they're copying us. And we also know from our research that the UK has well-developed networks that they've invested heavily in terms of what we're trying to do. The UK has 3 different networks and has invested a lot more money. So in conclusion, I would just leave you with my insights on the 3 A's. So anchor what matters most to you. For me, I have anchored my work on holding fast to my relationships in the belief that data and being a nurse scientist and a nurse scholar are vitally important to transforming primary care systems that will result in better health for all patients, their families, and communities. The second A is to align your values with your science. In my case, I see myself as a servant leader that can strengthen the capacity of practice-based research and learning networks as an engine for primary care research, particularly when it comes to asking and answering clinical research questions. And finally, the third A is accountable. What or who are you accountable to? I often ask myself why I do this work, because there's lots of times where it feels thankless. However, I have a strong sense of personal accountability to Canada and to building capacity to continue research and to strengthen primary care for all. So I'll say again that I'm really happy to be here with you all. I'm so glad that you came, and this is an incredible honor. And so stay tuned to what's to come. Thank you. No, I actually talked too much.
Oh,
Wow.
Okay.
It's amazing. Sorry.
That was impressive. And I love all of your policy work. And we're so honored to have you here. I want to present you with a medal. It's a small token up to acknowledge the Helen Nahm Research Award. Congratulations.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Oh, we got a real photo. We're doing photos today. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks, Sabrina. Oh gosh, that was great. It's amazing for me, it's amazing just to have known you during this time and wow, like all the work that you've done in the policy stuff and like sticking to change, which has always been impressive. I want to say that's the conclusion of our event today, but we have a reception that's awaiting you outside. And please join us, and you could possibly ask questions then of Dr. Wong, who is our 45th Helen Nahm Research Lecture awardee. Congratulations.